Welcome back. Today, I am joined by Connor Walsh and Alison Craven. Our last podcast was some time ago, and we spoke about all kinds of things that I can't remember right now, but we're going to talk about a lot of things today, starting with peptides.
Drugs.
I said I didn't say drugs. Drugs is going to get us flagged on Instagram, Connor. Thanks. That's peptides, all right? Mysterious liquid that everyone is obsessed with now. All right, so we've talked a little bit about the different aspects of these things, and I guess I would like to start with understanding what some of them are. Connor, I don't know if we spoke about it with Alison last time. BPC 157, TB 500, the Wolverine stack, the most popular thing that people talk about, is a big one. Injuries are a massive one. And then you've got some of these other ones that have started to pop up. But touching briefly on those two, your experience, Connor, with them is you've used them yourself, you know, clients who have used them and things like that. What do you think about the perception of where they're at the moment in, you know, the land of social media?
Look, there's a few camps. I definitely am an advocate of peptides in general for their potential benefits around performance enhancement, as well as certain longevity and just general health aspects. Having said that, there is definitely, I think, a bit of a emphasizing on what their potential is at the moment. People kind of almost looking at them as a magic bullet, and also as this crazy new drug or kind of technology that's come out when they've been around for over a decade at this point. They're just through their kind of second cycle of popularity. Yes, they definitely have their place. BPC and TB we've talked about. I can't even remember how many times we've talked about at this point. They work. They both control inflammation well. Both improve angiogenesis, the formation of blood cells, have some benefits around upregulation of growth hormone, particularly in tendons. So there is definitely some useful benefits within the context of both, you know, strength sports, bodybuilding, and longevity. Having said that, I do think there is a little bit of a magic bullet kind of syndrome that surrounds the peptides currently.
Damn it. I thought I was...
Still great. I still reckon, you know, for the most part that they are a good thing.
Cool. Because I got this knee thing, you know. It's not even that big of a deal, but I just think injecting something into it's just so much easier than...
doing any rehab.
Yes, right? Like so much quicker. I'm flat out, man. You know how it is, right?
I know very well how that is. And
kind of gets it.
We've spoken about this. Obviously, Jacob's pulling the piss, as we usually do.
I'm being dead serious. I don't want to do any work. No, look, I think they've been talked about constantly. We hear about them a lot. We're just going to cover some bases with some of the peptides so you know what we're referring to here, and then we're going to go into a little bit more about them. We have spoken about those a lot. So the other one that you mentioned last time was GHQ, and we're seeing lots of people talk about that now. It's like the anti-aging kind of peptide. Am I right?
Yeah, to a degree. So we did speak about this on one of the first podcasts, GHK-Copper or a GHK-Cu.
Well, I said GHQ, didn't I?
Yep.
GHK-Cu.
I knew exactly what you meant, Jacob. It's good.
GHK-Cu. For the purpose of editing this later, I have said it properly now.
So GHK-Cu, if I remember correctly, it's a glycine, histidine, lysine chain of 3 amino acids and then a copper particle. It's a naturally occurring peptide rather, so it is something your body produces naturally. It does decline as you age. Has some particularly good benefits around improving collagen synthesis, so improved hair, skin, nails, potentially even connective tissue and stuff of that nature as well. There are some other benefits around lung protection, as well as some minor stuff that has been shown on kidney and cardiovascular health as well.
When you say minor, you mean like, did they test it on a blowfly once?
Yes, it was at a microscopic level. No, as is the case with most of these research that we're looking at is not significantly backed and repeated. It's not something that there is, you know, multiple studies showing the same thing. So when I give that there is potentially evidence, that it's usually 1 or 2 studies may have indicated or hinted that this is able to occur. That's kind of more what I mean by that. There may be profound benefits that we don't know about. It just is not the science that's been there to kind of back up and confirm that this is happening, because it's just a little bit early on.
Right. I got from that it's the fountain of youth.
Fountain of youth, exactly. Magic bullet once again.
Magic bullet once again. No, it's the one we've seen. It's a popular one at the moment, as we spoke about. I think this next one is a favourite of yours, is the SLU, the SLU PP332. I got that one correct, right?
That's correct. This one doesn't technically fall under the peptides category, though.
Oh, damn it! It's not a peptide technically.
It's not, but it does kind of get lumped in kind of generally in terms of your peptide sites that will sell it. It is an estrogen-related receptor agonist. Very different class of drugs. I'm not aware of any other drug from within this class. Predominantly works through upregulating mitochondrial function. It is, from my experience, it seems to heavily fuel an increase in glycogen use or glucose use, so glycolytically fueled energy expenditure. Obviously, glycogen being burnt doesn't necessarily equate to fat loss. However, the increased expenditure, especially when it is paired with other agents such as, and I think we'll probably touch on this later, but like GW501516, which is a PPAR modulator and will shift the body's energy preferences slightly more towards lipids and fat. When you start stacking these, or the SLU with some of these other drugs that are able to kind of change body's preference of energy source across to more of a stored triglyceride versus glucose, then I personally have seen just, like, frankly, some of the most phenomenal, we'll go as far as saying game-changing results from some of the clients that we've used this with, including some of my prep clients as of late.
Interesting. We will touch on that later. Quite an interesting one. MOTS-C, that's a peptide, right?
Yes, that's a peptide.
Fantastic. What does it do?
So this one's another one that is working predominantly around mitochondrial efficiency and enhancement. To put it simply, it is effectively signaling for the body to increase substrate, or delivery of substrate to mitochondria to then allow the mitochondria to be able to turn that substrate, by substrate I mean energy from, say, carbohydrates, lipids, etc., to then be able to increase that, then turn that substrate into ATP. So obviously that's what the mitochondria's main job is. It's the powerhouse of the cell. It produces energy from the macronutrients that we consume in the diet to then allow us to produce ATP that our bodies and our cells can then use as energy to fuel our day-to-day activities, exercise, etc. So MOTS-C, one thing you'll notice is because you are physically signaling that the cell is to use more substrate to make more ATP, you do get fat loss because there's more energy turnover that's occurring. And it does also tend to come with quite a nice non-stimulatory increase in energy because you are physically producing more ATP. It is not the kind of energy that is, like sleep hindering or, as I said, like stimulatory. It really just feels more like you've had a good sleep. Energy return on the use of MOTS-C will vary from person to person. The healthier mitochondria is to begin with, typically the less of a noticeable change you're going to have in energy output when you do start to bring in some of these compounds, versus those who have maybe a bit more impaired mitochondria to begin with, may see some pretty profound changes in the way they feel day to day in energy levels when some of these drugs and compounds are introduced.
Don't get me started on mitochondrial function. Am I right, Alison? I mean, mine could be better. Look, we're making our way through these. So far, I feel like I've had all these things. I will be Wolverine himself. But we're going to talk about all the possible negatives as well, which is why we're here. I've just got a list here, and I feel like some of them now aren't peptides, but we'll try. Ipamorelin.
A peptide, yep.
Cool. What does it do?
So, look, ipamorelin is a GHRP, or a growth hormone releasing peptide. And as far as this class of drugs, you can pretty much summarize all the drugs that fall within this class relatively similar. There are some differences. So ipamorelin is a GHRP. GHRP2 is another GHRP. You also got GHRP6, hexarelin, I believe sermorelin, which is newer. I think there may be a second component to that, but it is. I'll have to double check that one. I actually haven't done as much research into sermorelin. I'd better know some of the older peptides. But effectively, all of these compounds work by telling the pituitary that it needs to release the growth hormone that it has already got within it, that it's already produced. It's effectively telling it to dump the growth hormone. So we also produce growth hormone releasing peptides and growth hormone releasing hormone, which is the other category of growth hormone peptides that are available. We produce these endogenously. These are effectively agonizing, which means stimulating the same receptor that our endogenous forms of GHRP and GHRH would be stimulating, but doing so to a higher degree. So the GHRP is typically going to be stacked with a GHRH, and I think if I remember there was CJC1295 on that list.
That is the next one, yep.
So CJC1295 would be a GHRH, which is a growth hormone releasing hormone. You also have CJC1295 with DAC, so there is drug affinity complex added to the same peptide, which then increases the half-life of the drug. Regular CJC, very short-acting, the DAC changes I think it's like a 15 to 30-minute half-life into something that is more like 6 or 7 days. Pros and cons to both. Won't touch on that now. That could be a separate thing. We'll keep this to just the mechanisms of action.
Try to remember, so just in the state of this, Connor, you're a smart man, but just let's pretend I'm a fucking idiot, right? Which isn't too far from the truth.
Yeah. I don't agree.
Yeah.
I don't agree. Disagree. That came out bad, people.
Such a nice thing to say. Try to keep that in mind when I ask you what these things do.
Yeah.
But you're saying that that's the more extensive topic anyway in terms of preference.
Look, in terms of differentiating some of the differences between certain things, we won't go too heavy into that. Effectively, so you've got two classes of GH releasing peptides, ipamorelin, which falls under your growth hormone releasing peptide, and then growth hormone releasing hormones such as CJC1295. Growth hormone releasing hormone and any of the peptides that are made to agonize the same receptor that the growth hormone releasing hormone does tells the pituitary that it needs to produce more growth hormone. Growth hormone releasing peptides then tells the pituitary to dump the growth hormone that the pituitary has produced, which is why they're typically used in combination with one another, because one is telling the pituitary to increase growth hormone production, one is telling the pituitary to release the growth hormone that it has produced. So when used in combination, you typically get a significantly better effect than if you had used even twice the dose of one or the other together. So that's why you'll often find, say, ipamorelin with CJC1295. Now, if we are just quickly touching on ipamorelin specifically, where most people would look at this as a primary choice for GHRP would be pre-bed, because it does tend to have a slightly longer half-life. One of the other benefits for ipamorelin is it has less of an impact on prolactin and cortisol compared to some of your earlier analogs of GHRPs, such as GHRP2 and 6. And unlike your other GHRPs, which tend to have significant impacts on ghrelin and hunger, ipamorelin is much more mild and seems to have little to no increase in terms of appetite. So it is a little bit more suited to dieting phases as opposed to something like a GHRP6, which is going to make you ravenous after you take it. You're still going to get benefits from the growth hormone, but if you're trying to lose weight, now all of a sudden you want to put down 4,000 calories 15 minutes after you've injected your GHRP6, well, it's probably not the right tool for that job.
Right. Okay. Cool. Understand a little bit more. I say a little bit, right? We'll do two more, and then we're going to get into all the things about these. There's honestly a few left here, but I'm going to pick the one that's, I don't know how to say that. EPITHALON.
It's an interesting one.
Say it. How do you say it?
There's two common ways in which it's said, epitalon or epithalon.
I wasn't going to pick either of those. Okay, cool.
There's full disclosure. I could be fucking wrong on both of them, but that is what I've heard them called.
It sounds like
that's what I call them, either or. Sometimes, to be honest, call them one, sometimes call it the other.
Sounds like a mystical village in Lord of the Rings or something, so I like it.
Well, to be honest, it is a bit of a mystical peptide. Now,
Tell me about it.
So the main claims around, and this is, I personally do use epitalon or epithalon twice per year. I am not as well read up on the mechanisms of action and everything behind it as some of the other peptides. So my knowledge here is going to be a little bit more surface level. I believe it is still based off a thymus gland regulating peptide. One of the things it does in the short term to moderate term is regulate melatonin production and stuff of that nature. So one thing that you do tend to notice, and one of the things that I notice most when I do my one of the two every 6 month cycles of epithalon, is you get a temporary or an initial onset of improved sleep, but also seems to last for 2 to 3 months following the use.
So good sleeps.
Good sleeps, and in terms of sleep quality as well as kind of onset and falling as well, possibly not a bad thing to use if you've been using kind of melatonin in excess, especially if you've been caught out by the change in prescription regulations and stuff here and can no longer access melatonin. Not that epithalon is legal to access either, but I'll leave that up to you to figure that out.
Wait, hold on a second. These are illegal?
Well,
Damn it.
It's hard.
I can't do any of them.
Grey area. It depends. See, the thing with a lot of these peptides, they're legal to possess, not legal to personally take. I mean, if you're a research scientist doing research on rats, knock yourself out.
And the rats.
And the rats.
Knock the rats out too.
Potentially, yes. But to keep on track here, epithalon, the main use is around telomere lengthening. So telomeres are effectively what allows DNA to continue to replicate. Once your telomeres get to a point where no longer your DNA can effectively replicate, that's effectively when you're starting to die. So especially if you're using growth promoting agents such as growth hormone and things of that nature, which are speeding up cell replication, you're going to be shortening your telomeres. Obviously, as you age, your telomeres shorten as well. So telomere length is one of the things that they use as an indicator for longevity and as to whether certain things are able to improve lifespan and outcome and stuff of that nature. It's theorized and moderately well backed that epithalon is able to lengthen telomeres. There are some over-the-counter supplements that should help as well, like astragalus, taurine, stuff of that nature as well. There is some data around epithalon in heart failure as well, improving outcomes in heart failure. But again, the primary reason why an AT person or just a regular user at home would be using epithalon would be based off one of the models that showed a relatively significant improvement in life expectancy using typically, actually I'll stay away from giving doses. It's typically a relatively large dose used for 10 to 20 days, roughly every 6 months. And there is some modest research to suggest that there is going to be likely an improved health outcome, if not lifespan, from the use of that.
Well, I just want to go to like the chemist one time and get like a script for something that's really minor. And then when I go to the chemist, like, can I take this? Am I going to shit blood? He could then look me in the eye and go, it's moderately well backed. It's moderately it's moderately well backed that you won't.
So when I say moderately backed, there is a little bit more human data on epithalon than there is with others. Generally in disease states, I think most of the data is actually in those who have already been into heart failure. It has been a little while since I've read it.
I'm sure it's fine.
But yeah,
I just want to know how I'd feel if they said it to me. Actually, just hand the script back to them. Yeah. Moderately backed isn't good enough for me today.
I just want to avoid giving definitives. And look, there is research on certain things. Taking research with a grain of salt is always important. Where the research came from, how much that research has then been backed up and confirmed is also important.
Also understanding human trials.
Human trials is another big thing.
I know a guy who did it once and he's fine.
Yeah.
You know? So let's remember that everyone's different.
Exactly right. N equals 1 data is just that. It's N equals 1.
Yeah.
For sure.
This, I'm not even going to try to say this, and it's the one underneath it. This is our last one. It's the one underneath what you just said. I think it's actually slightly spelt wrong.
You've actually, that's 2 different drugs. So
no, it's 2 different ones, but I know that they're somewhat related, aren't they?
Yep.
Yeah.
So we've got semaglutide or tirzepatide, otherwise known as Wegovy, and I can't even remember what's the Ozempic. Yep, there you go.
Let's see how many we can name. Mounjaro.
Yes.
There's another one.
The thing is, though, they've got different names then for what concentration stuff you get. At the end of the day, the drug name is tirzepatide and semaglutide, and that's really how people should be referring to drugs, not by the brand. It's a little bit picky on my end, but...
Just to be clear, though, that's Reta is falling into this category, or that's something else?
Yeah, so Reta would fall into it. So both of these drugs, their primary mechanism of action is through GLP-1 agonism. Semaglutide being a pure GLP-1, meaning the entirety of the drug goes towards agonizing the GLP-1 receptor. So one common thing I see is people switching between the three, so tirzepatide, semaglutide, and retatrutide, switching between the three compounds thinking that 1 milligram of each is equivalent. They're not. Semaglutide, because it is pure GLP-1, versus tirzepatide, which agonizes both the GLP and GIP receptors, versus retatrutide, which does both those two plus glucagon. Obviously, if a drug is splitting itself to do multiple jobs on multiple different receptors, the amount of, output on a single receptor is going to be lower. GLP-1 is what is responsible for the majority of the gastric slowing and appetite suppression that occurs from the use of these drugs. Semaglutide, because it's just purely working off the GLP-1 receptor, has a significantly higher degree of appetite suppression and gastric emptying slowing. Tirzepatide typically is the second one behind this in terms of appetite suppression. Pretty on par with retatrutide from what I've seen in real world evidence in terms of appetite suppression. Some people have a little bit of a favoritism to either or, but I wouldn't necessarily say that one's stronger than the other. But with the tirzepatide, you have the benefit of the GIP agonism on top of the GLP, which has a little bit of additional benefit with insulin sensitivity and stuff of that nature. And then really, aside from a select few people who may have side effects from retatrutide, maybe heart rate issues because you do have the glucagon agonism, which is freeing up energy and substrate to then be used as fuel, which is one of the reasons why it outperforms semaglutide and tirzepatide in weight loss studies, despite being the weakest, generally speaking, of the three appetite suppressants. The additional benefits gained from the third portion of, or the third receptor agonism within glucagon, in my personal opinion, pretty much makes the other two drugs obsolete, unless there is a specific reason as to why you don't want the glucagon agonism, which there may be certain things. Glucagon agonism typically doesn't cause, generally retatrutide improves glucose metabolism and management. However, glucagon agonism is causing the freeing up and releasing of glycogen from the liver to then be used as glucose in the bloodstream. So you may have certain cases where dysfunctional individuals may actually have temporary dysregulation from the retatrutide use. There is also a little bit more of a risk of increased heart rate from the retatrutide. So if you are suffering certain side effects, then there may be use case for some of the older analogs. Obviously, the main use case for the old analogs versus retatrutide is simply the other two are prescribable. Retatrutide is not yet prescribable. Mm-hmm. There has been human clinical data done on retatrutide. It's still currently moving through, I think, the phase 3 trials, as which has all been extremely promising and, again, has significantly outperformed the other two drugs.
And it's extremely popular at the moment.
Extremely popular.
I will dumb that down even a little bit better for you. Ready? Go watch this. Ready? Watch this. So you want to lose weight and then do this, but if you not eat enough, your health still decline.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I mean? Like if you have Easter eggs and Reta, health decline. Yeah. Right? They'll get it, you know?
Got it.
Yeah. They'll hopefully, you know what? They probably still won't get it.
No, probably not.
All right, just like old times, Alison. Hey, how good was that? Did your head hurt and you feel educated?
I've definitely learned some more, that's for sure.
Yeah. If I hear another letter and a number put next to each other, I'm going to pass out.
So you don't want to talk about GW50, 15, 16 then?
Oh my God. Surely that's not a real name.
That is a real name. It's part of the stack.
Fuck you. That's a Terminator. That's a Terminator. I excited to have you back on, Alison. Pet Test Australia.
Thanks. It's been a while.
Well, it has been a while, and we can now kind of hand it over to you, and you can tell us a little bit about. Someone's going to listen to that and go, "Oh my God, Connor, those all sound amazing. I want to do them all." We do not promote drug use. We do not promote drug use. maybe Connor promotes. Connor is a product of drug use. I've never taken any. I've taken a lot of drugs, just not these ones, right? But the point is, someone's going to try and go and get these. They're very popular on social media and people are trying to get them, but we are seeing apparently a lot of scams. Is that right?
Yeah, there's heaps. So when we started Ped about 4 years ago, it was all steroid financial scammers. So people trying to buy anything illegal online, you're opening yourself up to get ripped off, obviously.
Just to have an idea, like how do they, when you say like, is it as simple as they've got a website that will take payments and they just don't send them out?
There's all different types of scamming. So you can either have websites where you pay using Bitcoin or credit card or cash, and then you simply don't receive anything. Or it could be through online forums, chat apps, Telegram, all that sort of thing, where you contact somebody, they then take your money and don't send you something. You can get the cold callers. So these are the ones that will message you and go, hey, I've got, I'm a supplier, I have all this stuff. Never, ever, 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 ever buy from someone who cold calls you, whether it's via email, chat, anything at all. If they're trying to contact you to make you a customer, they're a scammer, 100%. They don't need to be contacting people to get customers. So anyone who does that is a scammer right off the bat. Social media accounts, I would say 95% of those are scams. So you can either have your money taken and not receive anything, or you get your money taken and then there's a follow-up scam of, oh, your order got lost. If you put in another order for 50% off, we'll send you extra. Or customs have got your order, you need to pay to get it out of customs or police, or you need to pay insurance, or the follow-up scam of trying to get more money out of you is a very common one. Fake shipping companies is quite big at the moment. They'll have a whole shipping website. It's completely fake. Never, ever pay additional money after your order for any reason. There is no order. Don't think, but it might be legit. If I just pay that $50 insurance, I'll get it. There's no product coming. Forget it. You're not getting anything. And then, of course, if you make it through all of that and you do receive your order, then you have the scams of it being bunk or swapped or some kind of junk. So there's all, you've got to get all the way to the end and then hope that by the time you do receive something that it's legit. So the biggest problem with peptides is underdosed. So they've either been stored way too long, they've been heated up during transport and all the rest of it, and the quality wasn't great to start with, and what you get is more often than not lower dosed rather than swapped. With steroids, it's most often a swap. And, of course, with peptides, all the people that were scamming with steroid sales are now going, well, hang on, peptides are beginning to get much more popular, so they're now switching tack. So if you're listening to this podcast, hop on Instagram, I guarantee you're going to see an ad for peptides. It will probably be a scammer.
I'm going to get so many of them now.
You get tons of them. Yeah, oodles and oodles of them. So it's a minefield, and people who take steroids know about scammers. They understand it's probably going to happen at some point to them, and they might be okay at navigating their way around and not getting done. Most people buying peptides aren't aware of how many scammers are out there. On our website, we've got a list of, hundreds by now of scammers on there, and we're seeing new ones every single day. Most of these guys will set up a dozen Facebook accounts, a dozen Instagram accounts. They go back and forth over, their websites are just clones of each other over and over and over again. So even though you think you've avoided one, the guy's got another one. So
how would someone avoid it? Are you saying that they could, so you've got a list on the Ped Test Australia website. Can someone go on there and search to see if it's in that list?
Yep. You can have a look through that list. It's all in alphabetical order. We've got the websites of shipping companies, the chat names, all of that on there. There are plenty more. It's not a complete list. They're just the ones that we've received proof that they are scamming. Quite often it will be slightly different spelling of a legit supplier, slightly different spelling of a legit forum or website.
I've seen this, an extra letter.
Yeah. A dot in there somewhere, or a dash where it wasn't before, or .org instead of .is or whatever. There's a million ways they do it. We've got our blog, which has tips on how to prevent getting scammed. Never put a big order in first. Don't contact cold callers for starters. WhatsApp is a big one for scammers contacting you out of the blue with a list.
Well, we got a few of them.
Yeah.
See, this is another thing, I feel like things have changed over time. I could meet a guy at a bus stop and buy some bud when I was 15 and it was good shit. You know what I mean? I know we're not promoting drugs. I'm just saying it's weird that it's changed. The internet's made it weird. This never used to be a thing where this would be this much of a concern. But I feel like now you're saying it, I've seen so much of that where the name's wrong or there's like a number instead of a letter.
Yep.
Horrendous. Yeah. So you've
a
seen
lot
an
of these
increase.
websites look very professional, incredibly professional. Yeah. But
Well,
a lot of them are fake.
That's another resource that we now have, right? Because of technology. Like they look professional because anyone can make a website now and it looks great. And I experienced this totally off topic, but I went to go buy this really snazzy looking handbag for my girlfriend for Valentine's Day once, and I didn't. And the very last minute, I was like, I'll check the reviews. Completely fake website. And it was a really good look. I've never been so excited about a handbag in my life. And yeah, it was just, I couldn't believe it. That was really, really impressive. Like their ad even had like tons of engagement. They had a full Instagram, full website just for these handbags that obviously just weren't even, they were just not sending them to people.
Yep.
And that kind of blows my mind. But now that you're putting it in perspective, I guess it's something we have to watch out for across all platforms.
Yeah.
The other thing, is there anything else you want to touch on in terms of the scamming itself?
What helps is once you've got a product, if you can test it or analyze it.
Which we may be able to do soon with peptides.
So we've got a test kit for growth hormone and we're developing one for Retatrutide and a bunch of other peptides. So unlike testing for steroids where you have a colorimetric kit, I'm boring, Paul Connor.
No, I'm tired.
He did a lot of talking.
He did.
Yeah, you know what you should take for mitochondrial function.
Yeah. I forgot my SLU this morning. That's the issue.
Oh, damn it. Sorry, Alison, continue.
That's all right. To test peptides, you can't use a color changing kit. They don't react to it. So what you have to use is a lateral flow immunoassay kit, which is a fancy way of saying same as a COVID test or a pregnancy test, where the fluid goes along and you get the change of color for lines. So you need the antibody specific for that drug for that kit to work. It has antibodies in it. So, of course, these drugs don't have antibodies for them yet. So for us to produce the kit for that, we've got a biotech company in Europe that breeds the rats, develops the antibody to then develop the kit. So it's a long process. The GH kits took us 8 months and they already had an antibody. So we're hoping this year the Retatrutide one will be ready. And eventually we're going to have the whole range. But convincing biotech developers to make this has taken us 4 years because they didn't think there was a market for it. So to get a partner to work with us, they're, of course, very cautious. So they're only going to develop 1 or 2 at a time. Depending how the market goes, and they'll produce more for us. So we will get there. It's just a very long-term project. And we will hopefully be able to analyse them soon.
It's fast moving though, right? Because that's the thing. So it's like by the time there's the one for this Retta one,
I know.
there'll be Megatron at 2 times.
Well, what people can do to help out is, I mean, obviously all of this is in-house R&D. So if you want to help just get to the completion date faster, start testing your steroids. Fund the people that are doing the work to try and help make sure that your use of illegal drugs is safer.
Fantastic point, Connor. Yeah.
And also support the researchers who are pushing for this sort of stuff. Not only us, but you've got University of Queensland researchers. Every time they have, their surveys available or people to participate in their research, do it. The more information that we have, the more we can push for the government to legalise drugs, to get more medical research done on peptides. But you need the data to show that that's warranted. So, yeah.
Well, this is the other thing to talk about, right? Because you know how I mentioned my knee before? I got this shoulder thing that happened as well. And immediately I was like, it's been 3 days. I think it might be time to jump on the Wolverine stack. But it turns out it's fine. But the biggest thing with these is they're very popular, but a lot of people are taking them without probably even like researching them. Oh, I chat GBT'd it and read it for 10 minutes and now I know. There is risks still associated with this as well, right? Like we're talking about testing so that, there's many different reasons why you'd want to test something, but obviously one of them is contamination and making sure that people are getting the right, product. How big of a a risk, I guess, from both perspectives, kind of being someone who's used it. And then, I mean, Ali, you don't have tests for them yet, so I guess you don't really know. But what are your perspectives on the risks there?
Look, it's very hard to say completely, I guess accurately without knowing, because there is short-term, there's acute, and there is chronic risks, and you're not necessarily going to see long-term chronic risks actually play out until there's been time period go past. I will say from the decade plus that I have using peptides and knowing people using peptides, and then 5 or so years coaching people who may or may not choose to use peptides as well, I have never seen a major significant acute reaction. Now, that doesn't mean it can't happen. I just am yet to see someone who has had anything occur that has put them in any significant immediate health situation. Again, not a free pass. There is still definitely the possibility that you could come across a peptide or something of that nature that does have something legitimately harmful in it. But purely from what I've seen, and there is a decent number of people that I've seen and overseen using peptides, I am yet to see anyone who's had adverse reactions. Now, again, your chronic and long-term consequences of these drugs is going to be less known because we just don't have that many people who've been using them for 10 or 20 years. I have been.
You're doing all right, eh?
I mean, I'm doing okay. Bleeding out my asshole a bit, but get that in the big jobs.
I mean, I don't know what your guys' Thursday morning looks like, but a little bit of blood out of the arsehole is pretty standard.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I know what you're saying, though. It's not like we can definitively say that there will or won't be anything. Yeah. But I just think, I mean, we've just done a really big list of like, here's all the things that they can do, which is also another topic in itself because people also don't have the most realistic expectations. They just sort of think like, oh, this will go away. And there's probably placebo effect. There's
there is.
Oh, here we go.
There is placebo effect is massive. I have spoken to multiple individuals taking doses of these peptides that are not effective. There is effective. A drug will work as much as a drug is consumed, so there is typically going to be a increasing effect with an increasing dose, but there is still in almost all cases, for example, no one's going to take 5 milligrams of Panadol and expect the pain to be, alleviated when a 500 to 1,000 milligram dose of Panadol is what is required generally to do that. I've spoken to people taking such low doses of these peptides that have 100% placeboed themselves into thinking that this peptide is doing something for them when they're just not even taking enough for it to make any difference.
Now,
they're so adamant that the peptides have made this game changing. It's like, dude, you've made no difference physiologically to your body with the dose that you're taking.
PedTest Australia is a WA-based company providing at-home testing kits for a range of black market substances, underground or counterfeit drugs that can often contain a different substance than what they claim, or nothing at all. In 2024, 5% of oil-based steroids contained no active ingredient. Oral steroids were even worse, 12% contained no active ingredient. PedTest Australia kits provide a quick and cost-effective method of screening products before they are used. Kit results help users make informed decisions about substances they choose to take and therefore reduce the risks they are exposed to. Don't take chances with your health and gains. Test it before you take it. Go to pedtestaustralia.com to order your test kits. This podcast is proudly sponsored by Studio 187 Tattoo. They're located on Guildford Road in Maylands, and I'm a clean skin, but if I wasn't, I would definitely be going to see these guys. They even offer private rooms to get tattooed in if you're not a fan of the open studio structure. You can find them on Instagram at Studio 187 Tattoo. Bulk Gym Chalk Australia are your go-to suppliers for gym chalk. Whether you are doing powerlifting, weightlifting, strongman, gymnastics, or running a competition event and need bulk supplies and prizes, they've got you covered. Options include block chalk, bowl chalk, liquid chalk, or invisible liquid chalk for those gyms where you aren't allowed other options. They even have a range of athlete recovery bath salts to soak those training aches away. Check out the range at www.bulkgymchalk.com.au. Now, I know what you're saying, but just so we can really specify and clarify this, I know it sounds like Connor is saying that more is better, you should say
not, yeah.
but he's not, all right?
Yeah.
If you're listening to it, he's just saying an effective amount is better than fuck all. But obviously, ideally, these people, if it's a placebo, they probably could have just rehabbed their shoulder and it would have felt fine. So it's a bit of a different case. But I find, I think it's a big part of it. And the social media's made it worse because there's this kid that's come out and been like, oh, this and this and this. Other people are seeing that, and it's spreading this thing where now you've got probably I'd say it's probably very similar to things like Reta or even any kind of, obviously Ozempic being the big one to begin with, people taking shit that probably don't need it, right? And it's just unnecessary. But to get back onto the contaminant kind of train, obviously you guys have had experience testing steroids, right?
Yep.
That's now, you can't really say it too much for peptides because you're not there yet, but obviously you've seen what can happen there with steroids.
With steroids,
crazy
heavy
numbers.
metals, arsenic, lead, all sorts of stuff, huge amounts of aluminium in some of them.
And this could still happen with peptides, right? No? Maybe not these.
It'll be different, but no one's looked at contaminants in peptides ever. So it'll be interesting. Hopefully there's none, but, you never know until you look. So that's part of our project this year. We're continuing our contaminant studies on steroids, and then we're also going to be taking peptides as well. So we're going to be setting up the forensic lab that we partner with is setting up to be able to take them. So fingers crossed that'll be pretty soon. And we want to keep this study rolling. So we've applied for government funding, still waiting to hear back. It's getting processed at the moment as to whether we get approved. But if we do, then we should be able to keep this going as a long-term research project, which would be fabulous.
Yeah, it's very exciting, some of the stuff that's in the works. And again, if you as the people want to help support some of this research study stuff coming out, supporting PedTest Australia is the way to go about it. Following people like Tim Pietkowski on Instagram and participating when he puts up surveys and stuff of that nature, again, is a massive help for getting these things passed and getting the data and everything that's required for us to actually action changes in testing and stuff of that nature. So there is things you guys can do to help speed this up.
And using customer data is what Connor and I have both been on a published article, scientific journal paper that came out, 2 days ago? Yeah. 2 days ago. So that was all on the customer database. So people who buy kits, and we're going to be doing this for peptides as well, send results back to us. We have it all saved anonymously. We don't keep people's data in a database, and then they got a biostatistician to go through and analyse a couple of years' worth of those results, and then we've had a scientific paper come out on that, which is cool.
Where is that available? Just would they have to go to? Would that be on PedTest's Instagram? Like if they want, you guys will have posted it.
And Tim Pietkowski's and Connor's. Yep.
Fantastic.
So we're going to be doing more of those.
Right.
Yeah, very exciting stuff.
It almost makes me want to buy a steroid, not even to use it, just so I can test it and support what's going on. And I did buy some, but I never got it. Now I got to pay another 50%.
$50.
No, if I pay the insurance, I reckon they might send it out. They told me they will. This time they said I'll get double the amount. Well, now we talk about the complications of possibly taking a peptide, testing a peptide. Blending is like now this makes things way more complicated, right? Because it's one thing to take a drug. It's another thing to mix a couple together. And I mean, we even notice with things like Panadol, and there's certain things that you don't want to, maybe not Panadol, but there's definitely certain just pharmaceutical things you can get from your doctor that you don't want to mix with other things. I imagine peptides, there's probably going to be some crossover that won't be great, but it's kind of hard to know what that is. We can touch from both your perspectives, but I guess like Connor, like what do you think about that? Because you're someone who's used multiple ones at the same time. Has it ever concerned you that maybe there might be testing on these individually, but we don't really know what happens once they're used together?
Okay, yeah, so there's definitely two aspects of this that need to be considered. One is the physiological effect of stacking two drugs that have different mechanisms of actions. So whether there is, counter-regulatory mechanisms of actions of each peptide, for example, I'm trying to think what is a poor example because there is still reasons why you'd use both. But for example, growth hormone being a peptide, insulin being a peptide, one increases blood sugar, one lowers blood sugar. Pretty poor example. It's just the first one that came to my mind. There are definitely certain considerations within peptide use where there may be, contraindications and not safe or potentially not beneficial to use together. However, the kind of, I guess, more social media present thing at the moment with the mixing of peptides more comes down to the actual way the peptides are delivered and whether you can mix multiple peptides within the same syringe or within the same vial without those peptides reacting with each other and denaturing the peptide and actually changing the structure or changing the peptide completely that you're injecting. Because obviously peptides being amino acid chains, it is possible for these amino acid chains to effectively break and change ordering of the way these amino acids are sequenced, and now you have a different peptide. Or you have denatured peptide, something that's no longer able to have a similar enough, chemical makeup to be able to agonize whatever receptor it's designed to agonize, and now it no longer is able to exert that effect. So, for example, one peptide that if you mix with just about anything else, you'll notice the allegedly syringe will go cloudy. I have allegedly done this a few times accidentally. MOTS-C, if you mix it with anything, you'll notice a visual change in the denaturing of the peptide instantly. Your peptides will go from clear to cloudy. You can physically see a change has occurred. Now, with the growing popularity of peptide blends, so I'll blend within the same vial, there has been some controversy, particularly around social media, particularly started by chiropractors that like to pretend they're doctors, as to whether you can viably mix these things. Now, I'm not a chemist. Chemistry is by no means my area of expertise. I'm not going to pretend it is, so I'm not going to go into this in any excessive depth. As general rules of thumb go, if they don't come pre-mixed, you're probably best to not mix them. Now, I wouldn't necessarily just look at your Chinese peptide suppliers because at the end of the day, they have financial motive to just sell you something. So I've seen blends that I'm like, fuck, there is no way that you can blend those two. Like, for example, MOTS-C. I've seen MOTS-C blends and I'm like, there's just no way that you're going to be able to actually get two effective peptides in that bottle by the time you've reconstituted that. Having said that, there are still certainly peptides that can safely be mixed, and especially can be safely mixed if they are compounded correctly with the correct fillers and at the correct pH and stuff of that nature to ensure that you are not putting things into any range that is damaging one of the peptides but fine for the other, for example. Having said that, if they are coming in separate vials, particularly if they are raw non-lyophilized peptides, so typically that'll be a vial where you've just got specks of powder at the bottom, there's no puck, so there's been nothing added to it to change pH or buffer or anything of that nature. I would be a lot more careful mixing those peptides within the same syringe, even like, for example, you've got, say, GHK, like a glow blend, which is GHK-Cu, BPC 157 and TB 500. If you're getting that from a trusted source, I mean, compounding pharmacies will compound these three together. I have no issue trusting, provided it's from a good source, that there is going to be any issue. Combining those three has it, provided it's been done correctly prior to the kind of production and packaging of the peptide. It would be a lot more iffy to mix them post. So say you've got three separate vials now, and instead of doing 3 shots, you just want to mix it all in one syringe and draw up from the 3. Because they have not been produced in an environment specifically designed to cater to all 3, I would be a lot more iffy to now combine them after the fact. Now, realistically, most of the time it's probably not an issue. You're also paying good money for your peptides. I generally just don't think it's worth combining them.
And also from a harm reduction perspective, combining stuff in one syringe is increasing your chances of cross-contamination. If there's any bacteria, any microbes in any of those, you're now contaminating those other vials. So it's not a good idea just as a general harm reduction thing. Even with steroids, you should not be – everybody does it, I know, but you shouldn't be using one syringe to fill from multiple vials.
Well, I was going to ask as well, like, I don't know if this is a stupid question. I don't know if it changes the testing side of things, but when people want to then test for that, how does that – and this may have already been addressed. I feel like it feels like a stupid question. Maybe it's not. But if someone, you said you're going to make tests for, so like BBC 157 or TB 500. What if someone has one of these blends where it's like 3 of them?
You would have to do a separate test for all of them, but the lateral flow kits will only react to that specific drug. So if they're blended, then it will detect that drug in the blend.
Yeah.
Because they're part of their certification process is making sure they don't react to the other ones. So that's all right. It just means you'd have to buy multiple kits.
Yeah, okay. It's not really a relevant negative thing. I was just curious as to if it changes it.
They're another one that has become very popular, and it's ever so slightly off topic, but it definitely needs to be touched on because it's just terrible advice. Water and oil don't mix. Please do not go mixing your steroids and your peptide.
And people actually do that.
There is a well-known doctor and fitness influencer that is advising people to do this.
That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard.
Dumbest shit. Absolutely.
Well, I've heard some dumb shit,
And
but that's up there.
When I say doctor, I'm not talking about a chiropractor. I'm talking
actual
about
doctor.
an MD who's giving this advice.
Ooh, that's not good.
Terrible. Terrible advice. Good way to make sure your injections hurt a lot more. Because again, oil and water don't mix. And you are definitely putting yourself at a much more likely risk of degrading your peptide or whatever that you are injecting by mixing it with an oil substance.
Especially benzyl benzoate may not react well with peptides. So, I mean, just that alone, the solvent in an oil is probably not great to be chucking in a peptide.
Yeah, and especially when this person is also an advocate of growth hormone. I think he was in the past an advocate of pharmaceutical growth hormone as well. So I don't know about you, but I'm not going to be throwing my $50 a pop growth hormone shots. Yeah, it's very counterintuitive in the fact that a doctor has been able to get to that point with a license intact, saying these things publicly and frequently is kind of scary.
Another point as well is if you do end up with an infection, if you've been mixing it all together, you don't know which one it came from. If you've got one contaminated vial, keeping your injections separate means you know which one gave you the infection.
This is true as well. You guys mentioned you mentioned something at the start about was it liquid or something that was being? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, reconstitution types. What type of liquid for reconstituting different peptides?
Yeah, this is relevant to what you're talking about now, right?
It is a little bit, yes.
Yeah, okay.
So kind of also more relevant to the previous part on like the mixing and I guess keeping peptides as they should be and stopping them from denaturing. The pH of the solution is something that does have to be considered to at least to some degree when reconstituting peptides. Certain peptides will last better in a more acidic or a slightly more basic solution. Recently, the popularity of AOD 9604, I'm pretty sure is the abbreviation.
It is on there, yep.
Yep. So that is one. Actually, no, it may not. I have to double check. I'm pretty sure it's AOD. Does prefer a slightly more acidic reconstituent. So this is something where you may use either fully, what is it? AA acetyl. What is it?
Acetic acid.
Acetic acid.
Yep.
That's one. Vinegar, effectively. Acetic acid. So you might
not use vinegar out of your cupboard.
Do not use real vinegar. Yes. So this is the majority of peptides are going to be reconstituted with backwater. You can use sterile water if and only if you plan on using the entire peptide vial in one shot. If at any point you plan on using a multi-use from that vial, there must be some form of sterility agent in the form of benzyl alcohol with the solution. And then there is a second layer of things to consider is what pH, obviously, the solution wants to be at. Majority, plain backwater is going to be fine. There are some, such as the AOD, IGF-1, LR3, and DES, particularly if you are wanting to have them last a little bit longer as well, should both be reconstituted with either straight acetic acid or a combination of acetic acid and benzyl alcohol. I believe tesamorelin also does best with some acetic acid, but I am not 100% set on that one. It's not one I've done a huge amount of research on too. And there are going to be another handful of peptides out there that are probably best used with acetic acid. So I can't remember everything off the top of my head. Obviously, I don't use every single peptide that there is. There are literally thousands of peptides that are around now. So if you are using a peptide and you're unsure as to, what you should reconstitute it with, you should definitely do a little bit of research and figure out kind of the ideal pH environment for that peptide before you just blindly go using, acetic acid or benzyl alcohol to reconstitute it.
How available is that information? Like, does someone have to kind of really dig deep, or is there like some pretty reputable places people can actually find out a little bit more about that?
Reputable, don't know.
There's Steroid Connect, which is Sonia in Queensland. There's a helpline, free helpline.
Fantastic.
She will help you because she gets a huge amount of calls for people who don't know how to reconstitute a peptide. Yeah. They don't know how much liquid to put in to get the dose they need. So if you're not sure, you can call her. Look up Steroid Connect spelled with a Q. She will happily give advice. If you don't have backwater, keep in mind backwater is not made by pharmaceutical companies. It's not a medically available product. They don't use it medically. So places making it are backyard providers. It looks professional, but it is made by a non-professional, possibly a non-sterile environment. You just don't know. We've got benzyl alcohol concentrate that you can buy off our website. It's $5. You use the sterile water from a needle exchange, and this will tell you how to mix up your own backwater. Always use the sterile water from a needle exchange. Don't use filtered water. Don't use boiled water. Don't use, the water that you put in an iron, which I've heard people use.
I've heard people. When I first started using stuff, tap water was people literally. It was common.
Yeah,
people would take their growth hormone tap water.
Yeah, it's not a great idea. You should be using. You're paying a lot of money for this shit. Do it properly.
Yeah.
Get sterile water. It's free. And then benzyl alcohol, $5 worth of that off the website is enough to last you about a year because you need literally the smallest amount. And same with acetic acid. We're going to have that available soon too. Keep in mind, it's not vinegar that's for cooking. It's reagent grade pure acetic acid, and it has to be diluted to an exact correct percentage. And there are all different grades of acetic acid in all different percentages. So unless you are confident doing those kind of calculations, don't. Make sure you're doing it correctly. You don't want to be injecting fucking 50% acid into your vein. Just don't.
Yeah, even the very low concentrations of acetic acid sting.
Yeah, it's going to hurt like a bitch.
Too much in, you're not going to have a fun time.
Yeah. So do it properly. If you're not sure, call Steroid Connect. We also have detailed instructions on benzyl alcohol and how to use it correctly and so on. But if you're ever unsure, find out first.
And one thing I will just add on to that as well, this might sound a tad harsh. If you're planning to use steroids and you can't do the math to figure out how to reconstitute and dose it correctly, or peptides rather, you probably don't have business using peptides. If you can't sit down and figure out how concentration works and do some basic low-level high school maths, the risks that you end up taking something that is potentially dangerous because you've fucked up a dosing is too high. It's one, you do have calculators available online, so those resources are available. If you type in peptide calculator or something of that nature, you will have multiple calculators that will come up, which will either give you a desired dosage and then a milligram of the vial and then tell you how much water to add or whatever, depending on what you effectively you'll need to add 2 of the 3 bits of information in, and it'll give you what the third is based on kind of what you need to add. But for example, insulin. You take 1 IU or you mess that up and you think that 10 IU is 1 IU or 100 IU is 10 IU, which happens. That's not just a whoopsie. That's, oh fuck, I could be dead in half an hour. So it's not, we talk about it lightly and, for the most part, there isn't a huge amount of acute risk involved, but there are definitely things that
there have been people who have died in gyms because they've got the insulin dose wrong.
For sure.
Yeah.
And no, this isn't going to be quite as serious in terms of killing you quickly but man, if you mess up, you've got say a high dose vial of Retatrutide at 50 milligrams and you do your math calculation wrong and you think you're injecting 500 micrograms, but you've just put 5 milligrams in, you're in for a rough week now. And there is no way, there's no throwing up or nothing you can do to speed the metabolism of that drug up. You are locked in for the whole life of that drug now. You've just locked yourself into a week of feeling like absolute dog shit because you fucked your math up.
Look, I accidentally took an extra ibuprofen once, and that concerned me enough. So I'm not going to worry about injecting anything because that sounds like there is probably a lot more to think about than. I'm not going to pretend I don't know heaps of people on it right now, and people will ask me as if I know, and I'm like, go and talk to someone else because I don't know. But also, side note, sounds like you're a moron, and what you just did is very stupid.
Yeah.
However, it's your bloodstream, your body, doesn't have anything to do with me. But this is why this is important to talk about because for whatever reason, it has exploded in popularity. I mean, it's always been popular. I don't know, how long do you guys reckon? It must be the last 12 to 18 months. It seems like it's been fairly recent that for whatever reason, it's just gone bang.
Yeah, it's China becoming very accessible to the rest of the world. So these drugs have all been around, well, not all, but the majority of them have been around in excess of a decade. If you've been in the industry, people have been using them this whole time as well. It's just from a cost perspective, they were never viable to be a mainstay in your program. No one was using BPC and TB500 year round because you were paying $150 for a 10-day supply, $200 for a 10-day supply. Now you can get that for a quarter of the price. In the past, people would use peptides and stuff like this when they specifically had an issue that they needed to fix. All right, I just tore my bicep. Let's go throw some BPC and TB in for the next 4 weeks. I can afford that. I can justify that. That's fine. Now, because it's so cheap and so readily available, you've got people that are just like, all right, I'll take this, I'll take this, I'll take this. I can stay on that. I can afford that. And now the potential for being on a stack of 400 different things year round, it's there. Whereas before it was just too cost prohibitive for it to actually be a thing.
It makes sense. Accessibility and affordability, pretty much how everything goes, right?
100%.
I worked at a vape shop. The vape shops all got closed down, and then weirdly, I've seen more vapes than I've ever seen in my life after they were all closed. Yeah, so it's a bit of a prohibition little trick there for you. Shout out the Australian government. But I'm interested what you think is going to happen when you finally do get these test kits. Alison, do you foresee
it's going to be interesting.
Just almost too many? Jesus.
One of the good things about developing these kits is once you've got the kit developed, then you can do the potency kit. So we're working on the potency kit for growth hormone now. So that's where it's going to get interesting. So, for example, we've been selling the growth hormone kits for a couple of months now, and we're getting a lot of results getting sent back through to us. And when we first started, it was probably 50-50 of them were positive versus negative. Now we're seeing a lot more positive as more people are testing, of course. And now it's probably dropped to maybe a quarter or a third don't contain any growth hormone. So it'd be fascinating to be able to get long-term data on exactly how much of the Australian market is legit and isn't, and then in terms of how much of it is underdosed, and with the lab then getting all the contaminant information as well. It's going to be fascinating because this hasn't been done anywhere else. So, yeah, I'm really excited to see what we get out of this.
And so how long do you think sort of be 12 to 18 months before you can actually have a few on the kind of go?
Hopefully we'll have the analysis going, so we'll be able to start getting some data pretty quick. But in terms of community data, which is your big widespread amount, that'll probably be, I reckon next year we'll really start seeing a lot of that sort of information coming together. So we do a statistics report every year where we go over everything we've seen in the last year and how it's changed from the year before. So we saw massive changes when China had its big shutdown. So once we start being able to get peptides into that stats report, we'll be able to track it long term. We're happy to do this for 10 years. We'll see how we go.
Is there anything about what you guys are doing or have done recently or have coming up that you want to touch on while we're here? You mentioned some things to me before, but I don't know what we can talk about. So.
What have we got coming up? Sorry?
Follow-up study on the heavy metals.
Yeah. So at the moment, when people submit a sample to us for analysis with steroids, and it will be with peptides as well, we get them to send a big enough sample so that we can do multiple different types of analyses. So at the moment, it's GCMS. So that's what Janishik used to test for contamination. Unfortunately, our research has showed GCMS isn't actually that great for it, for the specific contaminants you're going to see in steroids. So we're trialling a whole bunch of other ones. So ICP does your heavy metals. You need a fairly big sample for that. You've got GCMS, which will get your oils, your benzyl benzoate, your benzyl alcohol. We're also going to monitor how much of those are in there. For example, we saw one of the trend samples that came through last month. The lab said, you realise this has got a whackingly huge amount of benzyl benzoate in it. I said, oh, interesting. So like, screw it, let's check that on all of them. So we're going to be monitoring that, and then, you know, we also get the people who send us a sample to describe any side effects. Has it given bad pip? Did they feel sick? Did they, you know, what's going on when they take it? So we get to stick all of that together. We're going to do a whole bunch of other analyses. We've got Raman spec. We've got, I can't remember, there was one the guy, chemist, rattled off this morning when I was talking to him. So we're going to try a whole heap. We want to see ethanoic acid, if that's in there. So that's something that's used, for example, test E, any ethanoate. When you connect the steroid molecule to the ester, there's a whole bunch of other chemicals that go in there to make them stick together. Those chemicals are probably going to be left behind in residues, particularly when they're not made to a high standard. So medical pharmaceutical companies have limits of how much of these residues are allowed to be left in the end product. Steroid manufacturers, and presumably peptides as well, they don't conform to any regulations. It's all made under the table. So there could be quite a bit of these chemicals left over, and ethanoic acid is toxic. So no one's been able to figure out how to analyse for that specific one yet, so we're mucking around with that as well. So, yeah, it's an ongoing process of let's try this, give that a go, and we're lucky this forensic lab is happy to just throw everything at it, throw the whole book at all the samples and see what we get out of it. So even the samples that people sent in a couple of months ago, those will get reanalysed. So they've paid one reporting fee, but they'll get all the results all the way through as we try everything on their sample to see what we can get out of it.
Right.
Sorry for the rambling.
No, very interesting. No, it's good.
I get very excited about this. I'm like, oh, we're going to do all this cool shit. So I tend to talk about it a lot.
No, it's good. And obviously, like, you guys are probably most present on Instagram, right? Like in terms of besides your website?
When we haven't been shut down,
yes.
There's a big thing at the moment with all the harm reduction groups and agencies. Every time they mention stuff about drugs getting their accounts shut down, which is a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
So we mentioned a TGA warning of melatonin for kids being 9 times the dose on the label. It was from the TGA. We got shut down because we mentioned that.
Really? I've never had it shut down. How long does it get shut down for?
It's just the AI they have in it now that you mention any kind of drug. They think you're selling drugs because you mention a drug name. So it shut us down saying that we were selling drugs. And then you have to go through the whole review process and all of that crap to get reinstated. We've done that, I don't know, half a dozen times now.
Great. This whole podcast is going to get taken down. Thanks, Connor. Yeah, well, I don't know. It's good and a bad thing. It's double-edged sword, right? There is a lot of – it'd be good if a lot of this stuff was regulated better on Instagram so that people weren't getting the information from a 19-year-old.
Well, they don't seem to be shutting down the scam peptide suppliers and shit on Instagram very much.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't
but
it?
we get, limited quite a bit. So,
yeah. All the fake OnlyFans accounts. Sometimes you get 7 in one day and it's like the account name's got 17 numbers in it and you're like, why are these still a thing? Like I kind of remember on Facebook 15 years ago I used to get fake friend requests. Surely they're not still a thing now. But the steroid ones, I've even had them. I don't know why they target me, but I've even had them. I had someone message me on TikTok thinking I was Connor because he was at the front of my TikTok and they were like, we'd like to sponsor you or get you to promote their peptides or something. And I had a back and forth with them for about 10 minutes before I just gave up. But I was like, I'm not I'm not that guy. I'm not the massive bodybuilder guy. Stop messaging me. But they were, man. I think I messaged you about it, and you actually knew who they were.
I think I do remember. Yeah.
They were at some dodgy company, but it's. I think. I mean, this probably wasn't the plan. Wasn't for it to be a massive peptide podcast, but I feel like we've covered a lot because, the specific things that I feel like people are mainly concerned about is the scamming, because people are going to buy them. We can't stop that from happening. And the blending, I don't feel like a lot of people are talking about, so it's good to have touched on that. But was there anything that you wanted to touch on as well, kind of while we sort of have this here? There's some other names here, but I definitely can't pronounce them.
Look, really, kind of the main thing just goes back to the fact that the fundamentals of any aspect of training, recovery, rehab, nutrition, whatever, don't go away, regardless of whether peptides have been used or not. And I think that is the single biggest issue with the current state of peptides. It's not the peptides themselves. It's the situations and the way people go about using the peptides, and the fact that they think because they're taking a peptide that all of a sudden all these other things don't matter, which is not the case. I am an advocate of peptides as a whole. I'm not saying that there is not certain risks associated with them. However, peptides are an additive to an already good lifestyle and program. They're an enhancement. They should be enhancing something that is already good. They're not a silver bullet. They're not a magic way out. BPC and TB500 is not going to just fix your elbow. You still have to do everything. You add these on top, you get an improvement in ROI, but they don't just get you to the end goal by themselves. And I think that is the largest misconception around peptides right now, is that they're, they do the work for you effectively.
Yeah, and there's some other stuff out there we've even spoken about, but can you see that sort of stuff, like, because people are in this world and now they're veering into other things, and we spoke about this once, and I'm wondering if, like, we're going to see like a cycle here, right, where like they all have their time in the spotlight, and some of these probably will, but I remember I don't know that they're peptides, but it's something like, is Cardilex, is that a peptide?
That's a very it is a peptide, yeah. It falls under a slightly different class of peptides, under the bioregulators.
Do you think like things like that are going to have, like, do you think we'll keep on seeing that cycle where like eventually that'll be the one people are talking about a lot? Because I have actually seen it mentioned once or twice, but it doesn't have the same, but can you see it just essentially going in that, where we just got like year after year, we're just seeing people focus on particular ones and then...
Look, I think peptides will obviously continue to evolve. There's going to be continual new analogues of different peptides made. Whether they cycle through like fashion, I don't know. I'm unsure. I mean, as like BPC, TB500, probably still your two, arguable with the inclusion of GLPs, but BPC and TB outside of GLPs would still be the two most common peptides. They were the two most common peptides that were used 10, 12, 15 years ago as well, and they're still kind of mainstays now. So
yeah. What about and what about the stuff that starts to veer into like we spoke about Cardilex, and then we were talking about was it Pentasan? Like when that starts to go into almost like pharmaceutical, like because that's like an osteoarthritis. Or,
that's pure pharmaceutical.
Yeah. But can you see there being a connection, like eventually people starting to kind of even veer out of this and like try to kind of bridge into that sort of world as well? Because people kind of already do sometimes, I guess.
Look, psychologically, I think it comes down to the fact most people that are in the industry, especially like in the competitive industry of the fitness side, like bodybuilding, powerlifting, etc., tend to have a lower risk profile. So they're just more willing to experiment with drugs. I mean, if you start taking steroids, there's a good likelihood that you also have the risk profile and, the mentality that then taking another drug is also not an issue. And then taking another drug is also not an issue. So, yes, but I think that also comes a lot back down to the individual and almost kind of the type of person that the industry attracts. Again, it's just, if you don't care for the consequences of one drug, there's a high likelihood that you're probably not going to care too much for the consequences of these other drugs as well.
That's a good point. I guess I find that part of it interesting, because once you head into that realm, where it's more like, I guess, it's all pharmaceutical, but you know what I mean? Like once you head into that place, there tends to definitely be a lot with like medications. There seems to be a lot more like side effects, and mixing things together is a lot more risk. You feel like it. So I'm just wondering if there's ever going to be like a connection there, because that's obviously when things would get.
It's already happening in the nootropic side of things. You've got modafinil, people mixing methylene blue with, for example, it's methylene blue is massive, and TGA is about to restrict that. But you've got potential interactions with methylene blue that a lot of people wouldn't know about, with it being a monoamine oxidase inhibitor. If you are stacking anything that's serotonergic, dopaminergic, etc., alongside that, you can run into issues with monoamine oxidase is what breaks down these compounds, so it stops levels from getting excessive. You inhibit that, now all of a sudden you don't have that kind of break that stops serotonin and stuff of that nature from continuing to elevate, and they can cause serious problems. So there is definitely some risk in that, and there are the kind of people that tend to be involved in peptides, especially when it becomes more heavy peptide use. They're already veering off into other classes of drugs. Like as I mentioned, like your nootropics and cognitive enhancing drugs are often also taken by the same people using peptides, and HRT and steroids and stuff of that nature. Also, people start to look at drugs as like a fix for everything, and they'll find, okay, well, I can take a drug for this, and I can take a drug for this. And like I am, heavily enhanced, use quite a few drugs.
Really?
Not at all against the drug use.
I thought you were all natty, bro.
All natty.
All natty.
All creatine.
Yeah,
All creatine.
Yeah. That's why I pay for your programs, because you said that I can look like you if I just work hard.
Yeah, it's all takes hard work.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I know what you're saying. I think, and like Alison, I'd be curious as to like, I guess like round it off with, you obviously would get contacted by a lot of people, I imagine, and you would get tons of questions and that.
Yeah.
Have you noticed like a rise, I guess, in like even just like younger people? Like, do you get hit up by a lot of like people who are like kind of have no business really even hitting you up about it?
Yeah. We noticed last year's Oz Fitness Expo, there were a lot of young guys asking about getting into steroids. So there were blokes that were, under the age of 21 who would ask about, I want to take steroids. And kind of looking like they'd take advice from anyone. And then this year when we were there, it was peptides. Every single person that came into the booth was either taking one or wanted to take one. I mean, hundreds and hundreds. There were kids going, I want to take it for my acne, guys that looked like they're about 16. There was older women who were like, I do equestrian, so I need to keep my weight down, so my horse goes better. You name it, everybody was trying to get on peptides. So it's definitely a big change in just 12 months.
Surely at that point you just put the horse on steroids. Don't risk your own don't risk your own blood, right?
It's seen as, I see it everywhere, so therefore it's fine and it must be safe.
It's in my beauty products, right?
And look, legally, in terms of like, if we're talking from a WADA standpoint, as it currently stands, your GLPs are good to go. So there's actually no.
It's not considered to be performance
technically, Retatrutide's not yet approved. So if you follow WADA's actual guidelines, technically Retatrutide would be a no, because it's not, approved by any governing body.
But Wegovy or whatever's fine.
But yeah, semaglutide, tirzepatide, etc., because they are actually FDA or TGA or proper government official approved. Within WADA, you can still currently use those, be fine. You're still a drug-tested athlete. There's no sanctions. So that would be probably why it is getting used a little bit more in some of those tested sports, because you're not actually breaking any rules as it stands. Retatrutide's not being tested for. Again, technically, if you go off the way the WADA writes their rules, because it's not an approved substance, you are technically taking a banned substance, but it's not on the banned list. So you're not going to pop a test for it, so it doesn't really matter.
Oh, if you're not going to, that's not cool then. I was only going to do it because I thought I'd get in trouble. So now I know that it's approved. Maybe I'll do Reta then. I actually don't think I could handle that. I just like eating too much. That would be very hard to accidentally take 5 milligrams and then not be able to eat anything.
Yeah.
Look, I think this is probably the most we've managed to cover in a pod, so it's good. Let's let's put a lot of this out there and hopefully not get flagged for any of it. Yeah. It was great to have you back again, Alison. Obviously, I always appreciate your support with the podcast. I've been with it for a long time. I appreciate you being here today.
No worries.
Excited about what you guys are doing. Some of the stuff we haven't spoken about, excited about that as well. People can obviously follow Pet Test Australia on Instagram. It is pettestaustralia.com.au.
Just .com.
Just .com.
Yeah.
If you want to go to their website where you can find out all the stuff we talked about with the peptides. Mentioning again, Steroid Connects. Is that it?
Yep.
Was if you want to find out stuff about any of that, which if you're listening this far, you might. And then obviously, Connor, your Instagram handle's a mouthful. Is it C Walsh?
Yeah, just if you type in Walsh Strength and Nutrition, it'll come up.
Yeah, there's no other Walsh Strength and Nutrition. And then you'll see his face.
If it is C, it could be C Walsh. If it is, I'll change my handle after I get off because you're right, it probably is just a fucking...
I think it's just Walsh.
Could be. I don't know. I don't even know what it is. The one thing, I hate my email though. Every time I have to sign up for something, I'm at an expo and I've got to write my bloody email up. C Walsh Strength and Nutrition @gmail.com. It's just too much bloody right.
You've tried to spell ped test over the phone to an Indian bloody call centre thing. I never receive any emails that they're supposed to send you because they've all typed it in wrong. It's impossible.
Right.
Yeah, I like it when they do the one letter at a time. You know, this D for dog, and you've got like
for potato. Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Yeah. But look, if you want to follow either of these individuals, you know where to find them. If you've been listening so far, you already know who they are. It was a great podcast. I appreciate us being here again today. Thanks to Neverland Studios for the venue, and we'll see you in the next one.